Hi folks, it's Teresa, Stringfield Ridge Farm. I have a little video for you. Not a little video, a surprise. It was a surprise to me. We have a local little veterans museum in our county. It's privately owned, but she does a really good job of collecting memorabilia of veterans, and it's packed full because so many veterans and veteran families have brought her things to put in her museum, and she doesn't charge to go in and see, and she's always doing events for veterans, and they just love her. Her name is Sandy Hart, and she runs this little veterans museum. It's called Kentucky Veteran and Patriot Museum in Wycliffe, Kentucky. And she had a special guest come through, and she called me up, invited me out, and so her special guest just happened to be coming through and heard about the museum and stopped to visit. And this special guest goes around the country, not just our country. She goes around the world speaking to veterans and at veteran events and encouraging troops and veterans, and she really helps, from what I understand, she really helps veterans connect with other veterans that they've lost touch with and things like that. And she has a book that she helped publish. She didn't write it, but she wrote the foreword in it, and she helped publish the book. And she takes that around and sells it to help with her travels and things like that. But she's done a lot of good for a lot of veterans and veteran families and things like that. And what she speaks about is her grandfather. And her grandfather was General Patton. Her name is Helen Patton. And like I said, she is General Patton from World War II. Most people have heard of General Patton. This is his granddaughter. And her father was also a military leader. He was, I think, Vietnam, she said. And anyway, so he had troops under him too. And she told stories. I went out there to the museum to meet her, and it was pretty awesome. My first thought was, okay, I'm meeting General Patton's granddaughter. Whatever. But she was really awesome. She had so many inspiring stories to tell, and it went on and on for a couple of hours. I'm only going to show you about 30 minutes of that. So it did go on for about 2 hours though, and I did get a signed copy of the book, and anyway, it was just very, very interesting, and I thought I'd video a little bit of it. I'm cutting through some of it so that this video is not so long. Watch this video, and I hope you enjoy it. I really enjoyed meeting her, and I could tell that she is very inspiring, and I'm sure she was inspiring just to me, but I'm sure that she is very inspiring to veterans, and it was pretty awesome to meet her, especially in our little small county that we live in. She just happened to be going through to another speaking engagement, and heard about the little museum and wanted to stop in and check it out. And so here you go. Here is her speaking at our little small veterans museum in Wycliffe, Kentucky.
We decided after we had a night at this very nice lodge, we went and had breakfast at, I don't know, what was it called, the Gold Rush something, and then we went to a nice antique store across the way, and there was a very sweet lady at the cash register who we know her name.
Hamilton.
Yeah, Hamilton, and she suggested that if I was ever in Wycliffe, to please stop at this museum, and I just like, oh yeah. And then I was sleeping, and then woke up and oh Wycliffe, that's where we have to go. And then we pulled over, and she'd said you wouldn't be open, but lucky for us, you were.
Well, I live right next door, so I run next door anytime somebody's
All
there.
right, good. Well, now I know. But and so God has His hand on all of us, doesn't He? I'm a little bit shaking because we just drove by a place called Cairo.
Cairo in Egypt, Cairo in the
Okay,
United
well,
States.
my heart is broken.
Yeah.
My heart is broken. I don't understand it. But I guess because I've been in Europe for so long, I don't know why.
But that was extreme.
It was
That
extreme.
was extreme.
It was extreme. So I'd love for you to tell me about that little town. And so I think God, let's just say it loudly, He led us here. And I'm so pleased that He did.
It took me a minute or so to make sure that this was real.
If only my
Because
name
it's
were
so-
Helen Jones, you know, I'd have a lot more time on my hands. Yes,
Okay,
okay.
let's do the-
So let's do the
See, this is an honor and remember flag. And I want to
honor
say
and remember.
always.
You want me to tell you a story?
Oh,
Somebody
absolutely.
somebody asked me recently, what do you do? What's your mission? And I thought to myself, oh God, you know, every time I'm asked that question, I'm not really sure what to answer. I was born into this military family. Like every kid, I was much more interested in everything but that military family. All those books to read, to heck with it. You know, and then I got older and I got pulled into it because I'm a Patton and had to represent the family, and then I went and married a German and ended up over not this guy, he works for me. And then I was over there during the 50th, 60th, and 70th and 75th anniversary, and it was a tidal wave of welcome overseas. And but I can't resist being with veterans. And no matter how much I try, I can't resist
Amen, sister.
giving my attention to you and thoughts to you. And I asked myself, why is that? My father was a Vietnam veteran. He's no longer living. When I was a little girl, we met my dad when he was on leave from Vietnam. And I believe it was during those Michelin field combats, which maybe some of you have heard about. And he met us in Hawaii. It was Christmas time, and we hadn't seen our dad for a long time, and I was even trying to remember what he looked like. And there he was in Hawaii, and we had 10 days with him. But something was wrong. How could it be that I missed him so much, and he didn't want to be with us? Just didn't want to be with us. He wanted to be somewhere else. And I didn't understand it. But anyway, he did his fatherly duty and showed us around Hawaii. He used to live there when he was a kid. We went up to a mountaintop. It was very cold, and I had a muumuu on and no coat. But it was cold in Hawaii. It was Christmas. And I said, Daddy, I'm cold. I don't want to be out here on this windy mountain looking at views that you looked at when you were a little kid. I was only 7, I think. And he said, what did you say? I said, I'm cold. And he grabbed me and he shook me, almost shook my head off. And his eyes were just piercing. And he said, you are not cold. You're not cold, and you've never been cold. And you never will be cold. My men, oh yeah, right now, they're cold. They're cold, and they need me. And I'm not there, and I'm with you. And I think at that moment, there was like a transference, like a deep transference of comprehension somehow. And ever since that moment, either I've been striving or I was blessed to get veterans. I get you. I don't know why I get you, but it's something to do with that moment that I've always been able to get you. And so I feel what you're feeling as much as I can. And my father always also said later on, when we were calmer, and he knew I was working with the veterans, you know, welcoming and acknowledging. And he said, veterans can never, ever be thanked enough. But you gotta keep trying. And my mother was back there saying, and veterans' wives. They're veterans too. And so, as much as I try sometimes to escape, God always says, go there, go there, go there. And this one he said, go here.
Oh, I'm so glad he brought you here.
And I don't know when I'll be able to come back again, but my heart will always partly
This
be
is
here.
such a gift. This is
And it's
such
a gift for me too. And
Can you mention yesterday?
I was just going
the
there.
Vietnam.
Oh yes, yesterday I was taken to the replica of the Vietnam Memorial. Have y'all been there?
Yes.
In Perry?
Very good.
Wow, wow. And it was so moving. And my dad actually remembered knowing the first two names on that list. Nobody told me that. So it's just been a whirlwind. I'm here invited by the Stars and Stripes Museum, which I also hope if you haven't gone to, please go to, in Bloomfield, Missouri, not so far, because they want to expand. They've got an archive of your history there, and they want to expand, and I want to help them expand, but I also want to help them expand, making sure they get some traffic. You don't want to expand for no one. And that's why I was there. And so it's just been an emotional roller coaster to be at that archive and to go to the replica of the wall.
There's a book here, and it was talking about when he first went over, he had this minuscule paper thin group with him, and he was 59 years old and thought a younger guy was going to be put in charge of his men, and so he told Eisenhower that he would give him, half jokingly, $1,000 a week for every week that he could move up and get him into combat faster.
Well, Eisenhower was not the type of guy that would have taken that bribe. But maybe he should have. Yeah, my grandfather was, he slapped the soldiers. And then he, after that, he put his foot in his mouth in England and forgot to mention the Russians. He said he did, but the journalist said he didn't, and blah, blah, blah. And so they relegated him to an apple orchard, where he was totally reduced morally. Plus, he broke his toe on a cover plate from one of the vehicles. And plus, one of the guys had actually run over his dog. So it was like, his dog lived. But
His granddad saw a problem that was coming with the Russians before anybody else
absolutely, and he was down. He was down and out. He was down and out. But that apple orchard was where he came to himself. And I think it was the place where he turned into a really good man. He went from being him, being it all about him, to being all about the soldiers. And in 1993, I was looking for a vocation, possibly a religious vocation. Didn't turn out, because God sent me a man. And the abbess said, it's a better offer, go for it. But that man happened to be German. That's a whole other story. But anyway, I got to know this place as being a place of meditation, of thought, of a place where Grandpa considered what he was going to do next. And now this place was restored. I replanted 136 apple trees. And that place flourishes now. It's called Camp Patton. It's in a little town called Nauvoo. If you ever go there, there it is. We have a little Calvados from that place. And yeah, and then I went on to establish a center at Lafayette Bridge. If you know your history, that's the great bridge the little bridge that was taken around D-Day, a 4-day battle, 1,500 dead, including the Germans, still some men at large who are in those fields. And I've been working on trying to maintain what I consider the vertebrae of freedom's backbone. So this is also one. And the Stars and Stripes became very important to me because I was thinking, well, along with the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, maybe the Stars and Stripes, in its fairness and its attempt to be nonpartisan and First Amendment, also is worth saving. So that's what I want to try to do. So promise me, if you don't have an account with Stars and Stripes, maybe you can pick yourself up a yearly account. That would mean a lot to me.
Everybody would
Future.
benefit too. All the
Yeah.
museums. We want to basically be the gateway
Yeah.
between all the museums.
He wants to help the Patton Foundation bring all these guys, these points of light together, and we'll do it. And we're going to Texas now, and there's some fundraising going on there. And I hate it. I hate having my head. I'm usually the one that's giving money, but at this point, I'm like
just
you.
have to accept it.
We have to, because it's, also I have children. I mean, I got to a point where I was giving so much that my child called me one day, so I tried to buy pizza, but I couldn't afford it, and it's like that. I have down times too, even being a Patton, because, money's finite, but you just have to keep trusting, like he says, God counts every feather. Can you tell me the wars you fought in? Vietnam, or been a part of? Vietnam, Korea? Korea, no? Vietnam. When you're Iraq? Okay.
No, I was one
It doesn't mean it doesn't
ones
mean you
that was in between. I went in 1980,
Mhm.
and I got out in 1984.
Okay.
A friend of mine, her
Yeah.
uncle has been DNA'd, and he's coming back after 72 years from Korea. And PGR will have part of his family.
Gone the sun, o'er the lake, o'er the trees, o'er the sky. All is calm, safely rest. God is nigh. Didn't give him a check when he came through the gate. And there's one story when he was invited to some dinner at the mess hall with the troops, and the head of the mess hall gave him a very beautiful plate of food, which was obviously not what the others were getting. And he took the food and he threw it across the mess hall, and he says, "I'll eat what they're eating, or I'm not eating at all." And he and my grandfather always would, when they'd meet a troop, well, Dad would meet them on the base. He'd ask if they needed a lift, and then of course during the battle times, he would always make sure that they had eaten. Have you eaten yet? So when you come to Lafayette, that's what you see when you come into the kitchen. Have you eaten yet? So yeah, so that's also, my grandfather was very, very dedicated to making the soldiers as comfortable as possible. He went to great lengths, even to make a fool out of himself, to create a helmet that would cover the ears after he'd experienced the soup bowls of World War I. So it's him that's responsible for bringing it down. Yeah.
That's cool.
And as a matter of fact, what I learned the other day at the Patton Museum was that the helmet that's in the case there, with the 2 stars, I believe, is probably one of the first prototype helmets there ever were. Because it was, I won't say it was solely his idea, but he was the one that went into Eisenhower's office, sorry, it must have been Pershing's office, or whoever's office, and had a spray painted football helmet that he had, and he said, "This is the kind of thing we need." And then they took those ideas and went forward. Also his sword, he did the straight sword. Okay, I think my favorite General Patton story of my grandfather is one that was told to me by a veteran. And his name was Bob Shalato. He was a part of the engineers. I guess he was let's call him a sergeant. I don't remember his rank, but it wasn't high. And I'll try to imitate the way he told the story. So I was, heading out to the front. I was just one of the grunts, and your grandfather came by in the Jeep and stopped and said, "Soldier, I'm heading up the front. Any mines up there?" "Gee, General, I don't know if there are any mines up there. I haven't been up there either, but I'm heading up there." He says, "What do you think?" I want to know what you think. It's my favorite story because it shows the respect that he gave to his men and wanted to be colleagues with them all the time. So Candy, this book is, we're nearly out of them. We're nearly out of these books, but I'm so happy that one of the last books will be going to Candy Mitchell. And tell me about Candy's service and future service.
She's been in, I don't know, I can't think of how many years. She's been in quite a while. She married a fella. He is a master sergeant. They're both in the Air Force. He is a master sergeant and she is a first lieutenant. And they have 3 children. And they both plan to retire in the Air Force. And I'm very, very proud of her.
Well, I hope that the stories that are within these pages, there are about 75 of them. First of all, I hope that she doesn't read it too quickly because it's overwhelming if you read it all in one go. You gotta just take it slow and have some handkerchiefs nearby. But I also want her to realize that this is not limited to just these 75. And I'm sure that her heroism, both past, present, and future, will be worthy of this book and beyond. And believe me, there's a book being written somewhere else that will keep a permanent record of her actions. As he would say, keep your feet dry and study the Bible. But pray without ceasing in however you pray. And believe that even though we cannot control what our people in Washington are up to and deciding, the integrity in our heart is pure, and we'll soldier on. We'll soldier on, and we will be rewarded for that purity of purpose.
Thank you so much.
Angie, come here. Come here.